Hello and Happy New Year. Welcome back to the Giles and the Goalie YouTube channel, game previews. Tonight we are previewing the Minnesota Wild Florida Panthers game at XL Energy Center here on January 2nd. And as I wrote about on zone coverage today, really this week is a make or break week for the Minnesota Wild. They really can't afford to just keep saying, injuries are, why we've been so wildly inconsistent this year. Zach Parise coming back tonight. Anito Niederreiter will be back possibly Thursday. And that will give them a full lineup really for the first time this year as Zach Parise been out ever since training camp has started. So the Wild are getting a boost. And as I pointed out, they're getting very good depth now. Finally in their lineup for the first time this year. Bottom six has been a not terrible, but very below average in terms of production for the Minnesota Wild this year. And the trickle-down effect from getting Parise and Niederreiter back this week will do wonders, hopefully, for the Minnesota Wild in their bottom six. And the Florida Panthers, they start the week with them. They are very underwhelming. They beat the Wild 4-2 just 10 days ago in Florida, and that was the game, oddly enough, that Niederreiter got hurt and hasn't been seen from since. But these are three winnable games this week, starting tonight with Florida, not to get too ahead of ourselves. And obviously, James Reimer probably will get the call in net for Florida as Roberto Luongo does not start against the Minnesota Wild anymore. He has been torched to no end against the Wild in his career, so don't expect to see him. So expect Reimer to get the start. He has very good numbers against the Minnesota Wild in his career. And in goal for the Wild, I would expect Devin Dubnyk to get the start since the Wild are coming off a couple days off. And the Wild have breaks in between every game this week, so realistically, I would expect Devin Dubnyk to start every game this week, starting tonight with Florida. But Alex Dalek has played well, so it wouldn't surprise me if he got a start somewhere in there this week. But for tonight, you really got to think Dubnyk gets a start, especially with how crucial this three-game stretch is for the Wild, just to get them off on the right start, to give Dubnyk the nod in goal tonight. And hopefully you can see something that we saw from him on Friday against Nashville when he looked pretty decent in his return from injury. So that's what you can look forward to in goal. Player to watch tonight. We're going to try something new. We'll try to highlight a Minnesota Wild player to check on every game. Obviously, it's going to be Zach Parise returning. He has missed every game this year with a back injury, having the microdiscectomy surgery on October 24th. After missing training camp, preseason, and the beginning of the regular season with these problems. He had numbness in his leg, so he obviously tried to just hope that this would kind of fix itself, holding out until the last minute and then finally deciding to get the surgery to relieve some pressure on a nerve in his back, which has done wonders for him ever since. He had the conditioning stint in Iowa last week, fared reasonably well. But as Bruce Boudreau pointed out in his presser yesterday after practice, Parise getting back to full speed is going to take time. He's getting his first game of the year halfway through the season, and the game is at a whole different speed than what it would be if it was Parise, playing with the Wild on opening night. There's just a whole different gear to the NHL right now, and it's going to take Parise a little bit of time to get back up to game speed. So it'll be interesting to see how he fares, but you can hope that he can provide the Wild just a little bit more of depth in their scoring lines, as they really haven't gotten anything out of a bottom six this year. So hopefully him coming back and Niederreiter coming back later in the week will help give the Wild some kind of an identity in their bottom six, because they've really had none at all this year. So look for that. The Wild are just on the outside looking in, 1 point out in terms of a playoff spot as we preview tonight's game. And as I pointed out in the article on Zone Coverage today, this is a very crucial stretch for the Minnesota Wild. They cannot afford to give points away anymore. They have done so all year, where they have won 4 in a row and then they give it all right back. And Bruce Boudreau even pointed that out yesterday in his media availability. So everyone basically knows that it is no longer time to, dink around. You cannot mess around anymore. It is time to get down to serious brass tacks, and the Minnesota Wild can no longer afford to give points away in a very competitive Central Division and Western Conference. So I look forward to seeing a strong effort from them on Tuesday night to get this 3-game stretch here off on the right foot. And yeah, that's really what I'm looking for here on Tuesday night. As we mentioned, the Wild and Panthers played 10 days ago, and really you got to hope for a much better effort from the Wild. They've really had some encouraging efforts here in the last week, albeit out of the Nashville game on Saturday, but you got to think that there's going to be something good coming from the Wild here. So hopefully they can start putting some good games together and winning a little bit more consistently beginning tonight here with Florida. If you haven't yet, check out our most recent podcast. We closed out the calendar year of 2017 and reviewed some key storylines from the calendar year. Also recapped the last couple weeks of games, so do look for that. Here on the YouTube channel, you can find us on SoundCloud or on iTunes, and give that a listen, in addition to pre-gaming Tuesday night's Wild Panthers game. So do check back after the game. We will have a game recap for you, and yeah, we will talk to you after the game.